You're listening to the Fringianity Underground Podcast. Fringe topics with a Christian point of view. Now here's your host, Leo Rutledge. On this episode, I'm going to get into the divide and conquer strategy, or really what's happening in our nation, and kind of throughout the whole world in a sense too, as the world basically collapses into a divide and conquer system, where in the end the global elites and the governments will basically be able to rule over the people because the people are too busy bickering and fighting with each other. So with that, let's begin the show.
Earlier times, it was easier to control a million people. Literally, it was easier to control a million people than physically to kill a million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill a million people than to control a million people.
We want to show you what's happening live right now at the William Street on-ramp onto the downtown connector. Live images here from News Chopper 2. And look at the police presence. We think Georgia State Troopers also involved there. A barricade has been formed, just as Atlanta's mayor said would happen. He is not going to let any protesters onto the downtown connector. So our understanding is that's Georgia State Patrol and Atlanta Police, at a minimum, forming that barricade there, standing there now, toe-to-toe with protesters. Those protesters ostensibly trying to get onto the downtown connector. The mayor has said he is not going to allow that to happen. Obviously, that would be a great disruption to the public's right to travel through Atlanta. And so what you're looking at is News Chopper 2 live above this scene that is basically right now a standoff, if you will, but at this point it's just peaceful. I know there's some sort of juxtaposition of phrases right there.
We're going to go now to Channel 2's Jason Durden. You're live in News Chopper 2. Jason, tell us what you're seeing there.
Justin is right. We've got a mix of Atlanta police as well as the Georgia State Patrol. You can saw the trooper cruisers down there. At that front line, those light blue shirts, those are all troopers from the Georgia State Patrol that are blocking these protesters. Now, as Justin mentioned, this is on William Street. Now, this affects traffic coming off the connector south and trying to get onto the connector northbound. So that's what they've been trying to do, is to walk onto the connector as they did last night and as they did a couple of years ago. They tried to get onto the connector as well. They actually succeeded both times in doing that. We see a helicopter from Atlanta Police right there as well, hovering over the scene. Now, as Justin mentioned, it looks like there's no violence right now, no clashes going on with police. They're just, as he said, toe-to-toe, staring at each other, the state troopers and the protesters. So, not sure who's, if these protesters are going to back off from this or what they're going to do. There are, of course, other ramps to the connector that they can move to and try to get on. So we'll just have to keep a watch on this and see exactly what happens here in the next few minutes.
Earlier times, it was easier to control a million people. Literally, it was easier to control a million people than physically to kill a million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill a million people than to control a million people.
All lives matter. At least that's what I believe. I'm talking about this subject of Black Lives Matter and how this stuff has just taken over our cities And it's clouding up our news, and it's taking our mind off of the world at large as it's falling apart. And they're presenting us with an idea that there's a race war, and then the next week it'll be an Islamic war, and then the next week it'll be gays versus Christians, and Christians losing their rights. And it's all this back and forth, and complaining, and conflict, chaos, all kinds of stuff. Meanwhile, if you look around the world, there's giant, the people are getting sick and tired of these global elites, and they're trying to stand up, but the global elites and leadership in general is putting people out there that seem to be rioting and all this stuff, and they're paying people to riot, actually, and they're leading people into a panic, making people think that, I want to be with this group, or I want to be with this group, or, my group's better than yours, or my race is better. No, it's none of this is all illusion. People in general are not wanting to kill each other, and are not wanting to be racist toward each other or hate each other. People just want to live. That's all. It's pretty basic. People are sick and tired of the world as it is. They want to they're already dealing with enough crap. Their job's not paying them enough. They got to put food on the table. They got kids. The government system is raging war against their kids through the school and teaching them gay agendas and to worship Allah. And it's just, everything is just bombarding us all day long. It's just a mess. And on a day-to-day basis, most people who don't believe in anything are just bombarded with this, and they just think, it's just the whole world's going to hell. I mean, what are we going to do? And most people who don't know Jesus are just going to go, you know what? I don't care. If it comes down to it, I'm going to steal my neighbor's food. If it comes down to it, I'm just going to steal everything. I'm just going to go and do whatever. I'm going to commit crimes. I'm going to, just become a thug, basically. That's kind of what a lot of people think. I mean, around here where I live, there's some people that I know of that basically live off of the government. And they're proud of this. They don't have a job, and they're proud of that. Both of them just want to sit in their home and do nothing. And one of them has a pill-taking problem. And they're just sitting around collecting government money and just doing nothing. They don't even want to find a job. And, I asked one of them who they voted for last, and it was, they voted for Obama. And they're not complaining about his job duties and what he's done. And the thing is they have guns. And the interesting thing is usually Democrats are scared of guns, but they're not like that. They're kind of a weird mix. But the point is when everything goes to hell and everything's falling apart and there's chaos in the streets, there's going to be people like them. They haven't stockpiled food because, let's see, they live off the government. They don't make enough money to stockpile food, and they probably didn't think about that even. And they're just going to go walking across the street to my house and probably breaking into my house, kicking down the door, and turning on me. They know me. They know I'm not a bad person. They know I'm a Christian. And that's probably what will happen. That's the type of attitude that these people have. And I've actually said that to them before. In the past, I've talked to them a few times. And they actually say, well, we don't really need to stockpile anything, really. Just got to have guns. Guns are the way to, protect yourself from all this chaos. Well, I agree with them on that. Yeah, you have the right to defend yourself, okay? But there's only so far that can take you before you're just becoming a stumbling idiot who's just killing everybody and just
all in it for yourself. Okay, I mean, if you've ever seen a Mad Max movie, that's kind of what the global elites want to go down that road just about. Not all the way, because they want to have control. They don't want to have complete chaos. But the thing is, it's people like that I think about sometimes when I think of, on that day when chaos comes, I'll just put it that way. When chaos comes, because of, just say there's no food because of the government has shut down, everything just shut down, everything's gone to hell because riots and all this stuff. And people want what you got. They're going to come and steal it, even if you stockpiled it. That type of attitude? Well, it's people like my neighbors I think about, is it going to be me and him? We're going to have to face off against each other. As a Christian, I don't want that. I don't want to have to fight someone. I don't want to have to deal with that. I would rather have me and him share some food. I would rather have him be stocked up on food as well as me. And we can get along as neighbors, and while the world falls apart, we could be prepared and ready and be calm and cool because we're not worried that we're going to die or his life matters over mine. That's basically where it's all going. So the point here is the world is going to fall apart eventually. No one knows when, but we're seeing a lot of chaos and crazy stuff, and I think that's controlled for the most part. I think it's really being programmed into us, literally through programming called TV. And it's information that's just leading you to have fear and be scared all the time. And when you're afraid, you tend to act different than when you're calm and cool, So a person who's afraid is going to probably want to fight and grab whatever they can get and go. But a person who has Christ should not be that way. Should not want to steal and kill and rob and try to see what they can get away with and then run into the woods and go and try to, survive. And I don't ever want to be that way. I don't ever want to have to kill somebody. I don't ever want to have to commit any crazy thing just to survive, okay? But that's where the global elite want the world to go, because out of that, they're going to bring in their order. And it's going to be a police state. Now, I'm not saying police are bad. I'm just saying that they're going to get people to fight. They're going to try and federalize the police and make the police to where they work for the central government and not for the counties and, states. They're going to get them so that they're in control of them. And once they're in control of them, of course, they're going to be hiring the worst people in the world. Because whenever government hires anybody, they hire the worst people. Look at the government. It's the most corrupt and wicked thing that there is. More people die by government than they do by guns. The pen is pretty powerful when it's writing laws that slit people's throats, especially for Christians. But the point is this chaos